Please, when there's all here.
Hello guys, good morning.
The name of the organization.
Manish Steiner.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, Jean. We are with Jean. She's the CEO of Volunteering ACT in Canberra. Welcome to Radio Manpasand and Canberra Multicultural Service.
Thank you so much for having me, and a happy National Volunteer Week to
You
all
too,
of the
yeah.
volunteers in the region. So an amazing week to stop and celebrate the contribution of volunteers across the country. So we are here now at our Volunteering Symposium, which we run every year, which is about bringing together volunteers and people who manage volunteers, and it's a professional development day. So a good chance for us to talk to them about issues that are affecting the sector, and we have a range of speakers lined up. So we're here at the University of Canberra and we have a full day professional development opportunity. And then later in the week on Saturday we have our Volunteering Expo, which this year is going to be held at Campbell High School between 10 and 4 o'clock. And we've put together a whole bunch of exhibitors who are ready to talk to Canberra about volunteering opportunities. So we would love to see as many people as possible at the Volunteering Expo on Saturday, 20th of May.
And people who are watching or listening to our radio, what would you like to say to the volunteers who have been working so hard and people who don't volunteer themselves?
Great question. So to the people that are volunteering, thank you, because of course the community doesn't run without the involvement of volunteers. If you think about your schools that your kids might attend, the sporting teams that you're engaged in, when you go for a walk in nature, you go to the National Museum, or you engage with any service or program in the community, all of them have volunteers, and it doesn't happen without all of you. And to those of you who aren't volunteering and you don't know where to start, that's why Volunteering ACT are here to help you find the right volunteering role for you.
Lovely. We have been talking about volunteers, but I don't find volunteers coming forward because of the rising cost of living and all those things. And in the radio sector, we have been thinking of changing the name from volunteers to participants.
Right.
And give them a little bit of money to keep them in this volunteering job. What do you think about that?
I think it depends, and it needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So in some instances, it's about looking at the role, looking at the duties of the role and working out whether it is a paid role or a volunteering role. And that's one of the things that we can help people do, is to think through what are the differences to make sure that that's actually ethical and appropriate. So it would depend, and that we probably need to look at that. But the cost of living is impacting volunteers. But what I would say is that there are a variety of different ways people can be involved. So volunteering roles can look very different. They're all not Wednesday afternoon between 12 and 2. People are being far more flexible. So now's the time to engage with organisations, because they are ready to make it work for the individual.
Lovely. Volunteering ACT have been helping out all the volunteers. Do you provide any mental health support or other advice if volunteers are burning out themselves?
Yes, so we encourage any volunteers who are experiencing difficulty in their volunteering role to engage with us, and we do provide support and advocacy. And for volunteer managers, we provide a suite of training opportunities for them as well. So there's a range of different things that we can do. And so we do run particular courses on volunteer rights and responsibilities, and that's about teaching volunteers to protect themselves and to support the organisation in the best way possible.
And how can they contact you?
So the best way to contact us is just to look up volunteeringact.org.au. Otherwise, they can call us on 6251 4060. Otherwise, they can engage with us at our info hub in the bottom floor of the Griffin Centre in the city. Otherwise, we'd love to see you on Saturday at the Expo and find you the right volunteering role.
Lovely. Best wishes for the symposium.
Thank you.
And all the best for the upcoming expo.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you there.
Thanks.
Take care. Thanks.
Expertise and through your dedication and your passion, and we are delighted to be able to stop and take the time to celebrate you all as we navigate through some fabulous learning. We have a sellout crowd in person. We are waiting for a number of people to join us, but we were delighted that we sold all of those tickets here in the beautiful University of Canberra, and we have a number of people joining us from around Canberra and from around the country online as well, so a warm welcome to those people as well. Today we are joined by some incredible people in a variety of fields, including, and this won't be a surprise, volunteer management, conflict management, mental health, inclusion, young people, legislation, and a very important session just after lunch updating you about the work we have been doing in the development of the ACT volunteering strategy. Like a good Lamington, the program is jam-packed, so we will be moving quickly between sessions today so that we can share all of this wondrous content with you. However, to officially commence our symposium, will you join me in welcoming good friend of Volunteering ACT, Ngunnawal woman and advocate Violet Sheridan to recognize the conference.
Thank you so much, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here to the land of the Ngunnawal people. Volunteering, you make the world go round. You are the superheroes of our country. There should be more recognition of volunteers, because we cannot survive without volunteers. I believe the Australia Day Award should be given to each year a volunteer, because you do not get paid for what you give. You give your time. A lot of the people, I believe that, and my mother used to talk about it too, is that those people, the academics, most of them that get the awards, the Australia Day Awards, are being paid for what they do. Would they do it if they was a volunteer? So I believe there should be even a special award for volunteers each year. But thank you all from the bottom of my heart and my families for what you do, and you give your time to help other people. Thank you all, and it is my pleasure to be here for the 2023 Volunteer Symposium.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this amazing annual 2023 Volunteering Symposium. It's wonderful to see, as the chair of the board, so many of you here this morning, and I think we'll see people continue to arrive as the morning proceeds. It's an amazing theme this year. I think it's a really apt theme for its time. As you've heard, the change makers. As you attend the many workshops and sessions this morning, I wonder whether you'll ask yourself, what kind of a change maker am I? Am I a defender who stands up in the face of emergencies and gives voice to others? Am I a caregiver who supports and nurtures others? An inquirer investigating problems and researching or innovating solutions? A communicator who speaks up against injustice and leads advocacy? And I think we've seen that, as I said already this morning. An energiser who brings joy and passion to their community. A guardian who protects our natural habitat and our environment, never more important than now. Volunteers and volunteer managers play a pivotal role in creating positive change in our communities. We're all change makers. We all have the power and the drive to build the world that we want to live in. And I know that is true of all of you, because you wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case. It's not an easy thing to do. We all come across challenges that happen time and time again. And particularly, we've felt that, I think, collectively and individually over the last few years. But look where we are now. Look at what you've achieved through adversity and hardship. Now that is something that we all should celebrate.
Of course, Robin's reflected on the theme of National Volunteer Week being the change makers. So today we're starting our day talking about some of Canberra's best change makers. Our panel is about leading change. As we all know, the sector's experienced a great deal of change over the last few years, and so this panel aims to explore what leading change looks like, how to manage it, and about innovation. I would like to first welcome Hannah Andreski, who is the founder and CEO of Roundabout Canberra, a charity that rehomes baby and children. No, that's... I'm going to need a coffee, right? A charity that rehomes baby and children's items to families in need in the Canberra region. Hannah started Roundabout in 2018 whilst on maternity leave with her own newborn, and Roundabout has grown immeasurably over the last 5 years and has now helped over 8,000 local children to be supplied with essential goods. Next to Hannah, we have Alison McLeod, the Director of Volunteer Management of the ACT Emergency Services Agency, ACT Rural Fire Service. Say that 4 times quickly. She has studied land management and is now in her most challenging and rewarding job yet, creating strategies, structures and pathways for emergency management volunteers in the ACT. Alison has been a proud volunteer manager and passionate advocate, and is very much a fan of communicating the value and importance of volunteers. Next to Alison, between all the roses, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad is the founder and CEO of Helping ACT. He has lived in Canberra for 31 years after moving from Pakistan in 1991. Many of you will know Muhammad for establishing Helping ACT, which provides food security to vulnerable individuals and families in Canberra. Muhammad was the Human Rights Champion in 2006 from the Human Rights Commission and selected as Canberra Citizen of the Year last year. He's also an avid volunteer on several not-for-profit boards, all which work towards his goal of achieving no homelessness or lack of food security in Canberra. And our fourth speaker is Kat Reid. Kat is the CEO of Women with Disabilities ACT. They have been a local queer and disability advocate and community builder in the ACT for the last 8 years. They were selected Young Canberra Citizen of the Year in 2021 and one of Out for Australia's 30 under 30 in 2021 as well. Their activism and community building spans across the rights of people with colour, queer youth, trans and non-binary people and people with disabilities. Will you join me in welcoming our panel?
That I should care for myself. And the acceptance I was shown taught me to accept myself. And as I did, I started to be kinder to myself. If I reacted badly to something because of my own previous experiences, I started to extend to myself grace. Being included helped me to grow. It helped me to embrace who I was and realize that I was worthwhile. My confidence improved my mental health. The lesson of acceptance has stayed with me. So obviously I was only in Canberra for a couple of years. I've been back here for well over a decade, but that lesson has really been embedded in my heart. And I've continued to heal and nurture that focus. 4 years ago, when I was finally diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, instead of rejecting the diagnosis or seeing it as a weakness or a failure, I actually leaned into it and I embraced it. I educated myself about PTSD, and in doing so, I gained a better understanding about myself.
So my name's Katie, my pronouns are she, her as well. I am the inclusion manager at Volunteering ACT, and as Jean mentioned, I worked in education previously, so inclusion has always been a focus for me, working on differentiated learning plans for individual students rather than taking on a one-size-fits-all approach. And since moving into this role, I've learned so much more about how inclusion fits within the volunteering ecosystem, and sort of built up this passion for understanding these power structures that exist and the barriers that exist in our community for so many groups of people, and how important it is for us to actively do something about that. So I have worked with, I've been facilitating co-design projects with advisory groups made up of people with lived experience of disability and or mental health conditions, as well as people from newly arrived migrant or college backgrounds. And the focus of this work is to actually centre those people's experience in any program or service design that we are doing, understanding the intricacies and the nuances that affect these cohorts of people, and designing solutions that will be targeted to the needs of those people. In the inclusive volunteering program, about the social model of disability and how the barriers that people with disability face are not actually sitting with them as a person. The barriers actually sit in the community, and they sit in a society that's been built in a way that excludes them. So that's the sort of a framework that we can use to apply to inclusion through any lens. It's not just through disability, but it's a way to frame our thinking where the barriers actually sit in the way that our society has been set up. So a lot of these barriers may not be things even that your organisation has intentionally put in place. They could be external to your organisation, and before we acknowledge all of these barriers, we cannot do anything about breaking them down. So it's really important that we take these steps to actually identify what the barriers are to truly including people in our volunteer programs, so that we can then look at breaking those barriers down.
On this curve, I could have asked for help or implemented strategies earlier that would mean I did not end up down here. So of course, the further we end up down this side, the greater the impact it has on our lives. So for me, it ended up with diagnosis of mental illnesses. But of course, the further down here you get, the longer it takes to get back to here. So for me, getting back to that optimal stress zone has taken about 3 years from burning out. So the recovery from the burnout itself took many, many months, but now it's probably only recently that I feel like I can manage stress quite effectively. So that's a long time to address stress and mitigate stress. So here you see our Do No Harm framework. The Do No Harm framework was designed to empower our volunteers to safely share their lived experience. But it has very quickly become a way of life, is how I would describe it. From the moment I learned the Do No Harm framework, it became how I engaged with society. I started to think about what is the context and purpose of my engagement here. Why am I engaging with this person? What is the purpose of what I'm communicating them? And everything else that's superfluous to that is left out. Recovery emphasis. Is what I'm saying and how I'm engaging with this individual have a positive, hopeful message at the end? Is it empowering them to see the future, to see their skills, to see their strengths? Positive messaging, recovery and hope focus. Safe talking is around, for us, it's around not saying things in such a descriptive means that someone could copy our behaviour, so that's really around suicide and self-harm methods. But for us, it's very quickly described as if we want people to feel with us, not see with us. So if someone can see what you've experienced, you've given them far too much information. That is not how you create empathy, through visualisation. Empathy is created through feeling. So how you have connected with Kate today is because you've connected with the feelings that she had. You haven't experienced the exact same things Kate experienced, but you have experienced those feelings before, or you can imagine what those feelings are like. That's the power of empathy, and that's what we're talking about with safe talking, is we want to connect through feeling and not run the risk of trauma dumping and then leaving.
Makes Me Act different for me. I've been volunteering with Me Act for 4 years now, and that's probably the longest I've been with anyone apart from the netball coaching, which was 11 years. And this framework is what makes the difference, because it gives a structure for volunteers, it gives a boundary about what we should expect of ourselves more than anything, I think. It gives us the permission to say no. It gives us the permission to, when that child, a 15-year-old at the end of a school presentation comes up and says, oh, blah, 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 it gives us permission to say, you know, I've got a limit to how much I can help this person. Let me help you find someone to help you, rather than feeling like I needed to step into that space. And the staff, you know, Beth is a staff member, I'm simply a volunteer. And I know that I have even this morning, Beth was worried that I had a crisis with my daughter who has a mental illness last night. And Beth said to me this morning, if you can't do this, walk away. I'm like, it was 10 o'clock when she's saying this to me. Half an hour before the session, I'm like, I'm not walking away from you right now, but she was really clear. She was like, I think you should go home, I think you should be with your daughter. So every support is given by the staff to actually live this for our volunteers. And that's what makes the difference for me as a volunteer, that this is alive and well in terms of how the organisation deals with its volunteers.
Of course, our volunteers are quite unique to other volunteering organisations because we have people who come with a lived experience of mental ill health. So straight away, we're already thinking at a higher level, at the centering the needs of that individual and what could be going on for them. It comes first as a priority. Yes, MEACT has so many things that we want to do and achieve, and as such as we do today, there's jobs that need to be done. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that individual and their mental health and well-being. Like I said to Kate this morning, we will adapt and overcome. I will stand up here and make stuff up. I would do that over letting her put herself in a position where she was at risk of emotional distress or burning out and trauma. That is the priority we place on our volunteers. From the very start, when we do our training and induction, they are aware from day one that they can call up or walk into a classroom in a room and say, I'm not up for this today, I just can't do it for whatever reason, and they will be met with empathy and support. There is no pressure ever to show up. None at all.
Yeah, you want another one?
Falls a lot lower on the priority structure for them. So.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. We will still advertise at the other events. I'll still be at the other events. That first one is really key. The second semester is also important, but the numbers do decline basically as you go, and being really aware of that uni calendar is super important for me, for sure. So I guess the next kind of part about about the quality stuff is where do we actually deliver our quality is sort of behind after that first initial contact. So from the initial contact where I've talked to you for 30 seconds and hopefully convince you to give me your email, because that's all I want. I actually just want a big mailing list at the start of the year. That's what works for me. From that point, I can give people a bit more quality. So I can give them a really sort of detailed explanation of what the programs look like, what's kind of expected, those kind of things, which they can read by email or in their own time, not when I'm sort of standing there talking to them for 5 minutes, because they're going to lose that stuff anyway. And from there, they can make a decision on whether the program's going to be right for them. We also deliver quite a long training session. I think it's probably the nature of our program. Obviously, working with young people, there's lots of things for volunteers to learn at the start. But we also use that, we don't waste that opportunity from a engagement perspective. We try and get other volunteers to come to the training sessions to help run them. So we can sort of show that it's not just us two up the front. We're not the only people in the program. There are some young people here that know a lot that you're going to be engaged with. Meeting them seems like a really good sort of induction into the program. And we can deliver sort of all of the quality and all of the support and those kind of things from that point onwards, hopefully.
I did like
That's to signal to you.
Strategic context. This is just a very crude visual representation of pretty much the relationship. We have our national strategy driving things, but as we do things locally, we have the ability to feed up to Volunteering Australia. And actually, they can learn from us at a jurisdiction as well. It's like a two-way street. There are a lot of other strategies that we need to connect with, and I just want to be clear, this is not a full list, I'm just giving you a flavour. So if anyone's going, oh, the strategy that I really care about isn't on there, I'm acknowledging that, I'm just giving you a flavour. One of the most important ones being the little health and wellbeing framework flower. So we know that we're fortunate to have that here, and we know that we're fortunate to have volunteering in there, in a couple of the domains as indicators. But what we all know is that volunteering actually cuts across every single one of those 12 domains in some way. And again, the strategy gives us the chance to really get that message across. Okay, so what will an ACT strategy contain? It's going to look a little something like this. We'll do that classic background intro. We'll set the scene, what's our sector? We'll give you that strategic framing. We'll talk about what we know. Not going to reinvent the wheel. You've told us a lot already. We're not going to keep asking the same questions. But we will say, here's how it aligns with the national agenda. Really big part will be, what's the cross-sector governance structure we need to support this properly so that it is connected in all the right places. And it actually has some power and some teeth. And somebody up here, within our structures, being that accountable leader. Monitoring, reporting and evaluation, everyone's favourite. Oh no, sorry, that's just mine and Joseph's. Essentially, if you're a volunteer, you are the centre. This is about respecting your individual experience and your individual potential. It's about respecting diversity and inclusion. It's making sure you can access, and it's making sure you get that recognition. Volunteer managers, you are the glue. Try doing anything halfway sensible and safe without you. You hold it all together. You spin all of the plates and patch them. Volunteer management is a profession. It's a very, very skilled profession, and we are on a mission to champion that within our national influencing work and our local strategy. We want volunteer managers to get that skill recognition, and by gosh, we're going to achieve it. I feel like I'm going to do a Braveheart in a minute. And this is the definition of co-design that we work to, kind of kicked it around for a while. As an organisation, this is what we are deeply committed to. Will we always get it right? No. But we will own that and we will pivot and correct ourselves. But this is what we do commit to, and it is that collective power and decision making. Which kind of brings me back to the advisory group. Now, there are some of our advisory group members here today, and we're really at the end now. I did check this with them, so any advisory group members that are still here, can you just stand up and give everyone a wave, or just wave if you don't want to stand up? Here we are. So we have Alison, we have Craig, we have Karen, we have Sarah, we have Barbara, and we have Sue. So what we've managed to do is get together quite a diverse group of people with expertise. They are you. They are volunteers, managers. You can see Jean out of there. It's like, I've got the microphone now, you'll have to wrestle it from me. But, joking aside, we're very fortunate to have a really diverse group of people. We look for that quite broad subsector representation. So we have someone from mental health sector, we've got emergency services, SES, rural fire service represented. We have Westercom, the GLAM sector. My favourite acronym of all time, galleries, libraries, archives, museums. Got to get a bit of GLAM appreciation in the ACT because it has been lacking in recent years. We have Sarah Hill, who's from, she's like trying to hide now. So we have people who are working in the sort of aged care sector, NDIS. We have Sue, who works at the Australian Botanical Gardens, so we've got that kind of conservation environment angle. We have Karen from Mental Health Foundation, and I know I'm forgetting someone and I feel terrible. Jamie Lee Keller from Vinnie's, that's who we have as well. She's not in the room, which is what threw me, but I think she is online. So we've got that representation. They are your representatives, but they're not the only game in town. We know that we need to broaden our advisory networks, and that is what we intend to do. And we're happy to test. We want to stay human-centered. We might not get it right the first time. We're very committed to try, test, fail, learn. Questions? So I know.
How are you all feeling? Are you still awake? Okay, Jean said this at the last session, after which we'll reach some closing remarks, and we'll be done for the day. But also before that, through volunteering, I managed almost to get my first employment in Australia. And lots of people have been talking about how volunteering can be a pathway to employment. It did for me. At the Roadhouse program when I was volunteering, I applied for the team leader position and I managed to get it. And in this role, I also had the fortune to manage so many volunteers. And I am confident to say that volunteering changed my life here. Suddenly, I became very busy. Volunteering made me feel that I am an active member in the community. I could clearly see the impact of what I was doing. I met amazing people, whether volunteers or volunteer managers. But when I reflect on this experience, I can easily say that volunteering gave me a hope that tomorrow would be better, and a hope that through volunteering, I could develop a sense of belonging to the new community I had moved to. But at the same time, this experience made me realize that there are some blockages at different levels in the volunteering space that we must address if we want to ensure that we have a diverse and inclusive environment where everyone can volunteer. Firstly, at the individual level, one of the blockages is a lack of awareness of volunteering opportunities. In my time here, I have met lots of new migrants who didn't even know that volunteering is an option for them. For others, they didn't understand the message about volunteering because of language barriers. So how can we ensure that messages about volunteer opportunities reaches everyone? And how can we ensure if this message reaches them, they would be able to understand it? I was lucky that I speak English and I know how to navigate the internet to look for opportunities, but the reality is that lots of new migrants don't know how much exactly, they do not necessarily have these skills to look for opportunities.
I would just like us to take the opportunity to, again, thank all of our speakers today for being here, for taking the time to connect, for inspiring us, for giving us practical things that we can take back into our organisations, but also giving us those bigger picture ideas and concepts that actually make a difference to our community and to the world. So will you join me in thanking all of our speakers today? I need to, of course, thank the University of Canberra for making us feel so welcome here and for providing such an amazing venue. We've had a great time here with the sun shining and the beautiful trees and for keeping us well fed. And of course, a very, very big thank you to the team at VolunteeringACT who frankly make these things look a little bit too seamless. So, you know, I have the luxury of being able to get up and MC these events. But they don't happen without months and months and months of incredible hard work from the team, pulling together every tiny detail to make this experience a wonderful one for us. Of course, Beck and Kath for their leadership in driving the team and in supporting them and connecting them. And the three staff members who I am going to very beautifully try and embarrass. So Lewis, who leads all of our marketing and comms, Domi, who is the events wizard behind all of this and has had to navigate all of the technical issues with great grace and professionalism, and Araya, of course, who engages with all of our members and put together the program for today. This wouldn't have happened without you, so I think a very big round of applause to all.